What's going on, my broskies? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And in this video, we have another tier list. Of course, this is heading into the month of July right now. Moving on to, just in terms of like the new batch of characters, there's actually a lot of characters that we have to add to the tier list here, or at least discuss before adding to this tier list. So the end of last month's tier list, of course, with this, the 11th anniversary list, where it was like a 3-hour long stream that we did, and we had up until Bonnie and Saturn were the most recently released characters before we made the last tier list. So moving on, we also had the release of Roger Rayleigh Gaban and the Rocks Pirates, which of course we're going to discuss them. We had the Kizuna stuff with Dragon, which was the most left field debut that we were not expecting. Again, we'll discuss that. The Super Evolution of Sabo and Koala, as well as the most recently released batch of Samanami and the Yamato and Oritama. So we'll discuss all of these as we get along here. Just a brief discussion about the tier list itself. So last month, because it was a big celebratory period and lots of new players were jumping into the game, we did a tier list essentially for like every character in the game, and it's pretty hard to make a nuanced decision, you know, when you're trying to rank over 300 characters against each other with vastly different things that make characters good. So of course, you know, it was very complex, but we're not doing that this time around. We're gonna pivot back to just doing a top 20. Maybe we could stretch it to top 30, but I think top 20 is a pretty decent place to put it. And just because a character isn't in the top 20 doesn't necessarily mean the character is bad. For example, V1 Rayleigh, he's one of the best characters to have in your account. Is he a top 20 legend in the game though? I would argue probably not, but he's still a really good character that you want to have on your account, you know what I mean? So don't just take this as if you don't have these units, your account is terrible. It's not the case. It's just that out of all the characters in the game, I feel like we're going to rank them in terms of how I value them, right? In terms of how much damage they're dealing, utility, usefulness, team building aspects, like a lot of different varieties, okay? So without further ado, let's actually jump into this. Now, not every character that is debuted during this month is going to make it into the top 20, so I think we should make this time now to actually discuss each of these characters, and before we get into the actual top 20, okay? So the first one, Roger Rayleigh and Gaban, this guy right here. This guy was pretty cool. Like, I think that it's cool in some aspects because it's, you know, Roger Rayleigh and Gaban together. It's kind of neat, but again, we already had a Roger Rayleigh and Gaban that came out late last year, so the fact that they're doing another one is just really weird. I would have preferred it if it was Roger by himself and then they released some subsidiary Rayleigh or Gaban that could work with them potentially in PvP. I think that would have been really neat. But in terms of the ways that I would actually ever use this guy is probably if you have to deal with enemies' damage threshold, where if the enemy has damage threshold, you just reduce it by 100%. They're just basically ignoring damage threshold. This effect's really, really cool, and I think that's kind of the only reason I would ever personally use this character as a captain, just to ignore enemy threshold. I know that some people are building teams in the most recent PKA just by using this guy as the captain, just because you can just ignore the damage threshold, which is really, really neat. You've also got the cooldown reduction, which is really cool, so that's nice, and it also counts for versus gauge and switch effect gauge, so that's really, really cool. The damage is nowhere near as good as some of the other anniversary exclusive or Super Sugo Fest exclusives that have come out this event period, but even still, it's okay. The EX Super is quite good. I don't really have any like discussions about that. I think it's just a decent ability. And then the special ability is just super weird because like they remove special bind, but they don't reduce it as a captain, which kind of hurts. Territory is basically just additional damage. Color affinity is fine. And then you get the really good chain growth when you use this character special, and then you can potentially get advantageous class effects. So I feel like in a Super Boss Kizuna sense, this character has quite a lot of potential, but because this character came out at a really weird time frame, we have to wait quite a while until we can actually test this out in a Super Boss Kizuna. So overall, there's that. Of course, we're not specifically looking at Pirate Rumble in this video, but lo and behold, this character is one of the best Pirate Rumble characters in the game, so that's cool and all. I don't think Roger Rayleigh and Gaban are going to be in my top 20, okay? So just a bit of a forewarning there. The next character that came out, obviously, alongside them, being the Newgate, Shiki, and Linlin. This character is bonkers. I don't know what they were thinking when they were designing this unit. This unit on paper, like, just reads like it's the most disgusting legend in the game in terms of it being disgusting in a good way. This character seems incredibly powerful. I love the captain ability. It's got lots of good things going on. I suppose the only real downside is that there's no cooldown reduction in the captain, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. You've got great attack multipliers across the board. You also have like the further buff to strikers, and then very similar to Roger Rarely Gaban, but instead for Rainbow Shield, you just reduce their Rainbow Shield completely. And then if you have a full team of strikers and you're below 20%, whenever you launch a special, you get really good damage reduction and you get HP guard. Like, that's absurd. Just being able to just generate HP guard for free is really powerful. It's a really good ability to have that. The super special is fine, just 50% bonus damage, and you can perform super tandem with recovery and similar. It's pretty good stuff. Their special ability is so nuts though. Like, striker class territory is great. You just remove the chain attack down, the max chain attack down effect, which is niche, I suppose. Nullification is niche, but good to have. The orb change is really solid. You get the orb boost, but if you already have one, you get set target status, and the fact that there is potential to launch this character special twice in the same turn with a character such as Blackbeard versus Law, like, this character has so much potential. It is oozing potential. As it stands right now, I don't think this character is like, you know, up there with being like a top 5 legend, but like, this character has major potential. Like, if the right characters release and the right support comes out, this unit could legitimately be one of the best legends in the game, like, not even kidding. And then of course in PvP, also very good. So Rocks Pirates, very solid legend overall, really happy with their design overall, really good. Moving from a great design character to one that left everyone scratching their heads in terms of what they were doing with Ginny and Dragon Ivankov Kuma. So, like, when we saw this, I was going nuts, man. Like, Dragon getting a legend is just so crazy, and the fact that they made it, like, an anniversary exclusive is just so wild, and it was almost like, it was like the post-anniversary stuff, essentially. It was the after-party celebration. So, Dragon getting his first legend is hype. However, the way they designed this character makes absolutely no sense. The fact that it's just, I guess it is kind of an issue with Dragon's design, but it's also the fact that the tag functionality in the game right now is just really poor, because there's just not enough characters to fully abuse this effect. The fact that he has this, but he's also focusing on being a cerebral captain is honestly what hurts. If he was like a rainbow captain, and then if you had the 5 revs, things might be a little bit easier to build with, but that really does hurt. The fact that he's cerebral and you need to run 5 revs in order to get the damage through defensive effects, it's like, kind of like, what are they doing? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And outside of that effect in the captain, there's really not a lot going on, like cooldown, attack boost, and that's basically it. He doesn't do a whole lot, right? And then of course the super special is interesting. It works very well with his actual special, allowing you to go ahead and switch your middle left character to the captain. It could be a downside, but I think that there are some interesting ways you could abuse this. The damage, the defense reduction through immunity is very powerful, which I do like. The threshold removal is always nice, but then again, the fact that he is focused on, you know, doing damage through defense, removing threshold is a little bit of a weird decision to put him in. It is what it is, right? The increased damage taken through immunity is always nice. And then double stacking conditional boosts if you have the Rev Army. Like, this character has so much potential. Again, very similar to, like, the Rocks Pirates. But Rocks Pirates, like, you can build them in a lot of different ways. Like, you don't have to, like, you know, like, shoehorn into certain teams. Whereas this, you have to run Rev Armies. If you're not running the Rev Army tag, you are doing yourself a disservice by using this character on your team, pretty much, right? So, yeah, I don't really get it. This character has a very weird design, and we just hope that the tag functionality gets a bit more support, and that's going to make this character better in the future. Ginny, a very forgettable legend, all things considered, and annoyingly is a Kizuna legend, so it's going to be very hard to get your hands on. I mean, she's perfectly serviceable. She's just an okay character. Like, she's going to be useful with Dragon Ivankov Kuma, if you have Mole Karasu. Like, if you have all of the Rev Army characters, yeah, this is going to be a really nice addition to your teams. But, again, like, if you're not running the Rev Armies, like, this character's probably not going to see that much play for you. There's not really much to talk about with Ginny. She's definitely not making it into the top 20, okay? And then we get to another disappointing 6+, unfortunately, with Sabo and Koala. Like, Sabo and Koala, like, a lot of people were really hyped for this one. Like, a lot of people wanted to see some big buffs, and unfortunately, we just didn't get it. The captain ability is very underwhelming. It just doesn't do enough. They needed, like, some type of utility piece in here for it to actually be worth running. It's just not good enough. The switchability buffs, I actually really do like. The orb change is really good. Love that. And then, of course, the color affinity getting buffed. It's all good stuff. And then the special ability essentially just making the color affinity boost last for 3 turns. Okay. Removing special bind is fine. You know, the switchability now removes special bind on themselves, so that's cool. And they do basically the same thing as before. essentially, like, no real changes. So yeah, Sabo Koala are very disappointing 6+, and it gets me a bit worried about other characters that we're all kind of hyped for. Like, I know people want to see 6+ for Luffy and Law, people want to see a 6+ for V1 Kaido, and if they're going to be in line with what we see here with Sabo and Koala, honestly, I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him get a 6+ because they're going to be absolutely trash and everyone's going to be disappointed. We can already see it, right? So hopefully we get some better stuff in the future. Okay, so after that Kizuna period, we now move on to the most latest batch with Nami, and we have Yamato and Otama. Now, out of these two characters, in the most recent PKA quest, I feel like Yamato and Otama are more useful in the PKA, but of course, you got to think outside the box. You got to think outside of this event period that they're going to be boosted for. Are these characters actually going to be good? Side note, this Nami artwork, I love this Nami artwork. It is so freaking sick. It's just cool. Like, obviously, like, Booba aside, I think the artwork is just really good. I don't know. The artist for this just did a really good job, in my opinion. It looks super, super sick. Either way, Nami I do like more compared to the Yamato and Otama. Main reason for it is because I can already see some synergies that this character has with previously released characters that Yamato and Otama don't really have yet. And what I mean by that is because with Nami, she does have the Super Tandem effect, and her Super Tandem you can use with Charlotte Linlin, and the fact that this character is Striker Cerebral Focus, she's a strength unit, the fact that she's Strength and Striker, and she has a Super Tandem with Big Mom, that already sets you up perfectly with the Rocks Pirates, right? Because the Rocks Pirates also, I guess kind of a side note for them, we didn't really touch up on that, they have the potential ability of a Super Tandem boost, and in order to trigger it, you need to have a Striker character perform a Super Tandem. Now, even though Nami is not a Paramecia, Big Mom, Whitebeard, or Golden Lion, or a Rocks Pirate, the fact that it is a Striker that performs a Super Tandem that is also a Strength and a Striker character makes a big, big deal. Her special also very, very cool, allowing you to get the guaranteed paralysis, where you need 3 or more Straw Hat or Paramecia type, which, you know, Big Mom is a Paramecia type, so that already helps you out there. And then obviously Nami herself is a Straw Hat, so again, you just need one other character with one of these tags and you're good to go. Or your crew has HP Overheal buff, then the paralysis that you inflict goes through immunity, and then it also increases your chain buffs for 2 turns, so the chain boundary that she gives you actually lasts for 3 turns. She also has the Despair and Attack Down removal, and then she also gives you the conditional boost against the paralyzed or the burned enemies, so there's really, really cool stuff going on there. And then also increase the boost of the status of the conditional boost by 0.25, so there's a lot of cool stuff with that. With her super special, you can launch it as a crewmate, which is pretty neat, and Charlotte Linlin is also listed as one of the characters for it, and you need one other unit in order to trigger it, but it also just gives you a heal, allows you to get a guaranteed tandem slot, which goes through Super Block Wano Rainbow. It would have been cool if it went through Super Tandem as well, but at the same time, Rocks already have the ability to trigger a Super Tandem with Recovery and Semler slots, so it is what it is. But again, further chain buffs, which stacks with this, is so good. So you can already see that this already has fantastic synergy with Rocks, and again, I just feel like we're so close to Strikers being a legitimate Super Boss team, at least currently. Like, we're very, very close. Relatively good support as well, which is pretty dope. So I think Nami across the board has some good stuff. The only real downside to Nami that I don't like is in the captain ability, you need to overheal 50,000 heal to get the utility. Like, imagine if you didn't have to do that and it was just flat, you always have the burn and paralysis removal in the captain effect. Bruh, this character would actually be godly. I don't think it's terrible though. I think overall that this Nami actually has a pretty decent design. I love the artwork, as I said. Great special, decent super special, and then obviously has a Super Tandem that has some great synergies moving forward, so we'll have to wait and see whether this is actually going to come into fruition. So I guess, and we'll talk about Yamato and Otama briefly. This character definitely does not seem as exciting. Captain ability has some interesting stuff going on though, being able to change all slots into recovery, and then when you eventually get to stage 3, any recovery slot you have is changed into a Wano slot. This is the first type of captain ability to do that, and being able to abuse this in the PKA to like then lock the slots for multiple turns is just really dope. And then, of course, very similar to Nami, you need to overheal a certain amount to get the attack down and special bind removal. Again, if this didn't exist and it was just flat, like always have 10-turn removal of attack down and special bind, like that's a really absurd, great captain ability for utility. But you have to jump through, you know, a bunch of different hoops in order to get that to activate, which is a bit of a shame. So her special ability, allowing you to get the special reverse, is pretty cool. Unfortunately, she only resists it by 1. That does kind of hurt. Paralysis removal is good. recovers, which is okay, but then you get the base attack boost, which is a very mediocre buff, and then if you have a striker or cerebral captain, you get a final tap buff, and then you can also get increased damage taken, like, enhanced on the enemy. And the super special being able to launch as a crewmate is actually really cool because it does go ahead and give this character more cooldown. It also inflicts increased damage taken to the opponent, which is pretty interesting, which could have some decent synergy. But I just think overall the effects of this character just don't seem as powerful, and I don't see as many synergies off the top of my head compared to what we saw with Nami. This character does have final tap. The final tap, I don't remember if it was any good or not. Yeah, it's trash. Yeah, it's absolutely trash. And then she does have a pretty good support effect, just being able to change recovery into Wano. Like, that could actually come into play in the future. So yeah, unfortunately, I do think that Yamato and Otama are a little underwhelming compared to the Nami. So with all of that down, we've gone through all the new characters, given you my thoughts and opinions of all these units that have come out this month. Let's get into discussing the characters in the top 20. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So in terms of my characters that are ranked between number 16 and number 20, these are the characters right here that I have. So let's go ahead and start from number 20 and we'll go ahead and work down. So the first character, of course, is the New Year's Sabo. Obviously he has great synergy with the most recently released Dragon Ivankov and Kuma. That definitely helps, and if you're aiming to build a Rev Army team with those characters in mind, you need to have this character on your account. Now, yes, there are a lot of Sabos that you could put on those teams, but out of the Sabos you can select, this is definitely the character that will see the most play. He's got great utility, he's got very useful abilities, and yes, you have characters like Anniversary Sabo, you've got Sabo and Koala that have just come out as well. This Sabo is so great though, really nice to have, and especially if you're up against content that has the advantageous class effect, the weakness class to Cerebral, this character is going to be godly for that kind of content. So Sabo is pretty neat overall. He has a great super tandem as well. Like, my one actually is at level 4 right now, and even at level 4 getting a 2.5 times attack boost is absurd. Goes up to 3x if you get a max, which is just crazy good. Again, it's not a PvP tier list, but he is really usable in Pirate Rumble as well, so keep that in mind. And of course, we're talking about Sabo here, but there's obviously, he has the alternate art. This is the artwork that most people will have of this Sabo. He's just a really solid unit overall. He's a really good unit, and I guess he is kind of close to jumping out of the top 20, but I think overall this Sabo is just, ever since he's come out, he's always been a character to kind of fall back on. Like, if they release a new Cerebral batch, and you need to run Cerebral, like, focus teams, then this guy's going to be the guy you go to a lot of the time, because he'll be boosted or whatever. Really helps out that he's been boosting a lot of content, which helps, right? So Sabo, I think, is just a really solid unit to have here. Next is the Strength Luffy. I do really want to jump this guy out of the top 20, I think. I really don't use this guy all that much at all. I did use him in the most recent Super Boss Kizuna briefly, I believe. It's the problem with Luffy's, right? We just inevitably get, like, better and better Luffy's, and this character didn't really hold up that much since New Year's. Mainly his design in his captain effect, I think a lot of people just hate it. It's just not a very good usable captain, and it's just not good enough, honestly. It's a big L, right? And then of course, if you're not using him as a captain, you don't get access to the super special, which is a big deal because his super special is actually very, very good. So you're basically looking at his special ability, and what does his special ability do? Well, it does remove increased defense completely. That's useful. Damage dealing special. You get fighter territory, which doesn't help you that much because, like, fighters are a relatively weak class, all things considered. And then you also are able to inflict 3 times or up to 3 times increased damage taken, which is really powerful. Like, that is the best increased damage taken special in the game, so don't take that for granted. The only issue is in order to get the increased damage taken conditional boost, you need to have 10 turns of end of turn healing, or already have increased damage taken inflicted on the enemy. So that's the downside. In order to get both effects to activate, you need to really run, like, very specific units in order for it to work properly. I think if you use the Sabo alongside it, it will work, but yeah, it's just really, really annoying to get it to work efficiently. So yeah, Luffy is just a really annoying unit to use, but if you do use him correctly, he can be very powerful. So next is Uta. Uta's a character that's jumped down quite a fair bit. I'm still a big fan of this character. Again, whenever we get striker buffs, cerebral buffs, this character is just a character you can use all the time. Great captain ability, even though you look at the multiplier now, only going up to a 5.25, definitely a lot weaker than what we are used to, but being able to resist 10 turns of paralysis and special reverse is so good. The special ability is great. The super special is pretty mid, but overall, Uta is just a character you can always fall back on. Very reliable unit, and whenever we get buffs for shooters, strikers, cerebral, this unit works. Now, next up we have the Nami. We have the 20th anniversary Nami. 20th anniversary. 11th anniversary Nami. This character, I don't have this character, but I really wish I did, because like this character is really powerful, really good. So you've got the great multi-special, and the fact that you can just basically you can potentially use both in a single run. If you have your team built correctly, you can technically use both during the same turn. Very difficult to do that, but it's an option. And then, of course, you got the super special, which helps out too. Like, overall, like, great utility special, orb change, and then giving you increased damage stuff. Like, there's not really much to hate about this unit. The best berry captain in the game as well, if you're into that kind of thing. But I don't really think this character is going to see much play as a captain, but still, having a great set of skills here with the special, and then the super special here, like, it's just a really hard character to replace in a lot of instances, and again, not a Rumble tier list, but in PvP, extremely frustrating to play against. Very good character for all those reasons. And, you know, it's a striker that has super tandem as well, which helps out in other synergistic ways, as we talked about a little bit earlier. So Nami, I think, definitely deserves to be in top 20 right now. She's very good. Next, we have Shanks versus Kid. Obviously, Kid is just kind of here because he's just chilling, but Shanks is the real highlight here. Even though on paper, like, there's not really a lot going on, but it's the main fact that this character is really hard to replace on those high tier super boss teams. The slasher territory, being able to stack that with versus Luffy and of course Zoro and Sanji, you guys know the deal. It's very good. It's just the fact that, like, this character is nowhere near as usable outside of a super boss Kizuna as Zoro Sanji or Luffy versus Kaido. This character, if you're not using them in Kizuna, it just feels really bad. It feels clunky as hell because the versus ability has such a high gauge. Very difficult to get it to work efficiently. But of course, Shanks and Kid, just a character that works super well in Kizuna Clash content. Outside of that, yeah, probably not so much, but because they are so good in that content, like, I just feel like they have to see some kind of respect in this tier list in some fashion. All right, let's go ahead and speed through this a little bit faster. Let's go ahead and have a look at 11 to 15 next. All right, let's go ahead and finish off the first half of the tier list as we move on to 11 to 15, and this is what we have in store. So we're gonna go from 15 down to 11. So let's go ahead and start things off with Cross Guild. I mean, this is one of my favorite legends in the game, and whenever you have driven slasher related stuff, this character is going to be a great character to use. Captain ability is usable for sure, but it's definitely more powerful to use the special as a crewmate. Set target status is one of the most busted effects in the game. Just being able to get 2 times damage for free is just way too absurd. And then of course, because of the way that they're designed, it's very easy to get the second special as well, which gives you utility or boost. And also just potentially getting the effect 3 as well. Like, that's just dope too. This is like an added bonus, but most of the time you're going to get set target status, and then on top of that you can just get extra utility, potentially getting an orb boost as well. I didn't even realize, but the 1 million damage goes through normal attacks only as well. That's pretty dope. Never even realized that it even did that, so that's sick. So yeah, overall I'm a big fan of Cross Guild. It's just the fact that it, like, you need to, if you're running Cross Guild, and you really have to, like, make sure you have those cooldowns right. This is a character you need to limit break expand in order to get the most effectiveness out of them. But overall, a really fun design legend, and they have Rush Sugo special, which definitely helps. And if you're running, like, that core team of, like, you know, Zoro, Sanji, potentially like Shanks as well, like, you can actually get the Rush to activate pretty easily. So that's a huge positive that Cross Guild has. So next is going to be Oiran Yamato. We always talk about this unit on this tier list. Just an overall great legend to have because of the fact that you can be kind of flexible with how you use this unit, whether you're running in a cerebral team, whether you run it in a free spirit team. It's pretty cool. And then the fact this character can provide, like, so much good utility, being able to remove one selected debuff by 7 turns is so good. And then the % damage reduction based attack boost, and with the super special being able to use as a crewmate, and relatively easy to activate. Well, I say relatively easy to activate. It still requires 3 units, but the characters on the list are, like, you know, pretty common units, most of them being Straw Hat's Ace. Like, it really helps, right? And then being able to get the damage reduction, and then get the damage reduction based attack boost, make it last for multiple turns. Again, just adding lots of free damage that you wouldn't have necessarily had otherwise. And then, like, the utility and then the extra damage stacks really helps too. And again, has Rush Sugo special. So for all these reasons, Yamato deserves to be here. Toki is going to be the next one. We always talk about Toki, the uniqueness and being able to get the what do you even call this? I guess they call it partial immunity, but like the effect that she has is just so unique, and essentially no other character has it. Well, technically Sabo and Bonnie have it, but it's only to 1 unit. This targeting 2 units, meaning you can make both of your captains immune to a lot of additional debuffs that, you know, wouldn't normally happen, which is so good. And then on top of that, when they come back and you're avoided those debuffs, getting the 3.5 times attack and orb boost to those 2 units, like, what are we talking about here? Like, 3.5 times attack and orb boost to 2 units, most of the time is going to be more than enough damage to kill whatever boss you're coming up against. People have used this literally in a super boss Kizuna. Like, that's how good this 3.5 times attack and all boost is. Even though it's for only 2 units, it's good enough to carry you in a super boss, which is crazy to think about. Like, Toki is just so good. That special is so powerful, and I think, like, for the foreseeable future, I just don't see how this character is ever, like, quote-unquote power crept, because it's just so strong. I guess if they make better and better attack and all boosts, yes, technically speaking, but 3.5 up until this point has always been good, so, you know, keep that in mind. Very, very good. Very, very good character. So Law versus Blackbeard, initially when I was like making this list, they were lower, but after all of the most recent buffs to the Striker class, Law I do think is going to be making a bit of a resurgence, or at least I hope so. I think that Law has a lot of potential, and again, like, ever since Law came out, we've had all of these abilities here, and we're like, this could potentially be super, super good. I mean, Law already has a great ability to remove Despair as a captain, and you've got all these abilities to give you, like, more damage through final tap bonus stuff, which could also be extremely strong. And then defense down through immunity is always good. And then he's got reduced redundancy, where it's like you can get an orb boost. If you already have an orb boost, you get an attack boost instead. Law can also give you the overhealing buff, which allows Rocks to get their EX super, because Rocks either needs 3 listed or 2 listed characters, or if you have an overhealing buff, you can trigger it, and this character has the ability to do that, which is incredible. Yeah, right here, and allows HP to overheal 2 times max HP for 2 turns. So that's great. And in order to get it, you need to have an orb boost, which of course Rocks have an orb boost, so that helps you out. And then of course, if you have the full team of strikers, you can switch the character in your middle right position to the captain, and then give them 20 turns of cooldown and get a heal out of it as well. Like, there's just so much cool stuff going on. And this opens up the door for crazy things to happen, and I just think that Law is in a really good spot right now. So I do think for those reasons, I'm going to preemptively put him a little bit higher. Blackbeard is no slouch, though. Blackbeard is no slouch. It's just, we always talk about Blackbeard when this unit comes up. I wanted to give Law some love this time. And of course, speaking of giving units some love, Psy Gear 5 Luffy, I mean, he always is going to be around the mark, right? This is just like the best beginner unit in the game. Well, one of the best beginner units in the game. We'll talk about another one very shortly, but yeah, Psy Gear 5 Luffy, I don't think he's really going anywhere. He's just a really solid unit to have. Definitely damage-wise is like nowhere near as good as some of the other legends that come out, but in terms of usefulness, like in this Gear 5 form, it's just godly, and then you can have the base form to just have a revive, because that's a thing. It's really, really good stuff. So yeah, Psy Gear 5 Luffy is no slouch. It's a really nice character to have, but obviously not a character you're going to rely on in terms of high damage content. Alright, as we make it now to the top 10, we've made it to the second half of the tier list now, and these are the characters in my rank 5 to, well, this is actually 6 to 10, should I say. This is 6 to 10. We have these guys right here. So let's go ahead and start talking about each of these ones. So Int Luffy, unfortunately, he just definitely feels like the unit out of the 10th anniversary that's just kind of been left by the wayside. And it's not like we haven't been receiving Int, Fighter, or Powerhouse related buffs, but of course, it's like the Luffy situation once again. It's like there aren't really too many situations where this Luffy is going to be the best unit, or like best in slot character for your team. He's definitely a nice unit to have, no doubt, and of course still very powerful in Pirate Rumble. But still, this is a character that just won't see as much play as the other 10th anniversary units, which is really sad to see. This character does have the Despair removal in the captain, which is always nice to see. They're reducing of cooldown like 3 turns for switch versus gauge, and then also 2 turns of natural cooldown. Like that's fantastic in terms of normal content. And then obviously all the 10th anniversary units have that great utility captain, great utility special, and big damage as well. Bind removal, and then also guaranteed delay through immunity, removing 10 turns of threshold. You get a full board of orbs. You get the base attack if you've already got an attack buff. If you don't have an attack buff, you get up to a 4 times attack buff. Enhance your orb boost, and then a really good EX super to give you healing, class change. You get the color affinity boost. Like Luffy on paper is really strong, and I'm not saying he's a bad unit. It's just that you don't really need to use him all that much. It's just, it is what it is. So unfortunately, Luffy is going to be in my number 10 position. Personally, I just don't use him all that much. Then we got Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji after it. I think this character is definitely better. Well, Okay, well, it depends on the situation, of course. In terms of damage potential, this character is much higher. I guess one thing I forgot to mention as well, Luffy, of course, has a very good Rush Sugo special as a first tap or a sixth tap, which is a huge net positive for that unit. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, though, this character is really interesting. Again, it's the whole tag functions. We just need more characters with these tags. And then, of course, the special ability is incredible. Like, on paper, this special reads absurdly powerful. Utility, you get the territory, massive orb boost, and then that potentially massive attack boost as well. And then, of course, if you stack it on with the captain ability, which has the potential to give you a secondary stackable orb boost and a secondary stackable attack boost, like, that seems just absurd, right? And then, of course, you have a super special which can give you color affinity. So an effect that just overall full board of orbs, attack boost, orb boost, color affinity boost, territory, decent utility special. Like, there's not really much to hate here. And then they've got the super tandem boost as well. And the Super Tandem boost is pretty decent overall. Straw Hat 4 Emperor, Worst Gen, or Mythical Zone character using a Super Tandem. And then the effect just gives you more damage. Like, there's not really much to complain about here. It's just the fact that the character is very boring. Not a lot going on. And I do feel like there are still just characters that are just better. And obviously, the massive downside, it's a Zoro and a Sanji unit all combined into one. And that really hurts the character because it means you can't use Zoro and Sanji, which are still the best character in the game, so there's that. And of course, the fact that the character does not have a damage dealing special also kind of hurts, because even though it's a Luffy, Zoro, and a Sanji, you can get access to a lot of good supports. But the fact that they don't do damage actually takes quite a lot of really useful supports out of that pool. So I'm really not a big fan of the fact that they don't do any type of damage, even if it was just a health cut in some capacity. So that really does hurt the unit overall. But overall, you can't really complain too much about it because the character is still very good. So now we're moving on to the Rocks Pirates. We talked about this character at the start of the video, so I don't want to rehash it too much. But this character just is oozing potential, and I love the design of this unit. It's really cool, and I think this unit is going to be one to watch moving forward. Like, if we're talking about like investing in stocks early, this might be one of those units that could be really, really good down the road. Or they just never get support, and the character just kind of sits there in the kind of like the state that they're already in. Definitely could happen. It has happened multiple times before, but overall, I'm a big fan of the Rocks Pirates. I think they're quite good. Now we're moving on to the final two characters here before we move into the top 5. We have Nami and Karina. Again, we talk about this character every tier list. Like, I don't really know what much more else there is to say about this unit. A great captain, good crewmate abilities, fantastic switch effects. Both Nami and Karina have fantastic special abilities. We all know how good they are in PvP. Not really much else to say. Nami and Karina are fantastic. You want to have this character on your account. The only real obvious downside is that it's a treasure map legend. And it means you have to pull on a TM Sugo in order to get them, right? And then finally, the last character in the top 6 to 10 is the 10th anniversary Roger. This guy is so good, and we talked about like Luffy, the Sai Gear 5 Luffy earlier, being like one of the best beginner legends in the game. This is probably the best beginner legend in the game. Just a fantastic captain ability that gives you EXP, berry, special bind removal is always really good to have. And then if you have him as your dedicated captain and you use his special, you get attack boost, orb boost, color affinity. They can't be removed. And then if you end up running a team that can use the super special, being able to last for 3 turns, you get additional utility as well. Like, Roger is so good. You can use him in almost every piece of content. He's a rainbow captain as well. Roger's just a really nice unit to have. And if you're starting a Treasure Cruise account, you want to have this guy on your account. Again, one of the major downsides is that he is an anniversary exclusive. So he's not even a Super Sugo Fest exclusive, only pullable during anniversary style periods. So yeah, it means that if you didn't get him recently, you'll have to wait quite a long time before you can get your hands on him, which really does suck. But overall, Roger is just that guy. He is so strong, and he always comes up randomly. Like, sometimes you can just chuck him on a team for that attack down removal, chuck him on a team for the defense removal. If you have your team built correctly, you can get massive attack, orb, or color affinity out of him. And the one-tap super tandem, you can't forget about that one-tap super tandem, which is incredible, and you can use it with a lot of really good units as well. All right, let's do this. Let's hit to that top 5, and I guess it's no real surprise. This is the exact same top 5 as the last month's tier list. Not really much has changed. No new characters came out that I think shook up the top 5. The only one that was close was Rocks Pirates. Very, very close. Now, again, this is all my personal opinion. You may not agree with the way that I have ranked some of these characters. Some people might put Ace a little bit lower. Some people may put, Luffy versus Kaido much higher. I think, though, if you talk to most Treasure Cruise players, I feel like majority of Treasure Cruise players will outright state that Zoro and Sanji are the best unit in the game, is just because they do something that no one else can really do. They're just the most absurd unit that has ever come out, and there's not really much else to say about them. So I don't really want to talk about Zoro and Sanji too long. Borsalino, though, I love this guy. I think we talked about him extensively throughout the time, you know, since he came out. I love this character's design, even though the tag functionality as it stands right now does kind of suck in terms of there just not being enough units in certain tags. He kind of bypasses that downside with having a captain that can enable it to become rainbow and making your other characters on your team. So if you have the 4 more navies, all specials that are class or type focused and his captain all become a rainbow. So even though he is a dex shooter slash a captain, running characters of those classes or colors whilst also trying to run Egghead, Logia, or Navy, if you specifically focus in on Navy, then it gets rid of all the downsides. You can just run 4 navies, and now all of your specials that are only focusing on strikers or strength or powerhouse or whatever it may be, they just work for everyone, and that's so cool. And I love that he has that. On top of that, great damage, great cooldown, and removing 10 turns of burn and special bind. Not really much to complain about here. He has a fantastic, one of the best captain abilities in the game, straight up. And then he has a super special that is fantastic. Intimidation removal is extremely underrated. And then, of course, he has the cooldown. You get the orb boost that can override, which, of course, has the great synergy with the Navy Ace, of course. And then a special that is just pretty decent overall. The different changing territories to be either a slasher or a shooter territory, which is really neat. And then he gives you the really good chain-related buffs. So I love Kizaru a lot. I use him a lot. He's just dope. He's just such a well-designed character. Luffy versus Kaido. This is another character that is reoccurring in most tier lists because just on paper, they're just good across the board in almost everything. Both characters are good in Rumble. Both characters are good in normal content. Luffy is very good in high damage content. Kaido not so much, which is not really his own fault. It's just the fact that there's not a lot of good support for like Dex or a Driven. We should say Driven in terms of high damage content, which again, it's not really his own fault, but on paper, everything is so good. Sometimes with a versus unit, you'll get one unit that is supremely good, and you'll get one unit that is either bad or like just mediocre, not as good. But I feel like with this unit, this is like the rare circumstance where both sides of the versus unit are just godly in like everything. So that really helps his character out. Their versus effect are both amazing. We already talked about in Rumble. Both of them are also very good. And you got so many things going on. They're not really much to talk about, honestly. They just both have great utility captains, utility in their specials. There's so much to love about this unit. I love this character so much. Really well designed unit overall. And then we got the 2 10th anniversary units here in Shanks, and we also have Ace. Ace, of course, I think is a little bit more accessible, a little bit easier to use. Mainly because Free Spirit is such a good class, and also because Ace provides attack boost, he can provide orb boost, he can also give you a conditional boost potentially as well, and if you're using him with the Kizaru, then enabling all of these effects to activate is very, very easy actually. Whereas like Shanks, he is focused on slashes and Cerebral. We get a lot of good slasher support. Cerebral always gets good support as well, and I guess innately, whenever we get a slasher or a Cerebral focused batch, Shanks is just going to be a unit that you can work in with those teams. The only real issue that I find is like, you know, his color affinity focus, which doesn't always help you because you need to have type advantage to make that work. But what I do love about this guy is that his utility is so strong, right? He's got the bind removal captain, he's got the special to remove Rainbow Shield by 10 turns, Barrier by 3 turns, which is extremely valuable to have. The great orb change, you get the color affinity. If you already have the color affinity, you get the chain boundary, you can enhance your attack buffs. He has the orb boosting super class, EX super, also intimidation, which is fantastic to remove that intimidate, but sometimes can be difficult to activate both Ace and Shanks' EX super because they do need very specific units to activate. I guess that's probably the only downside, is that sometimes that can be an issue in terms of building teams to make sure the EX super actually works. But I do think it's not that much of a downer to make the character bad. No way. And of course, we talked about it with Luffy as well, but they're both, all these 10th anniversary units have amazing Rush Sugo specials, so that really helps out too. And then finally, Zoro Sanji, the most broken unit in the game. We've already made dedicated videos about this guy. This guy's insane, right? So that is it, guys. That is the breakdown of my tier list and breaking down the monthly characters for the month of June heading into July. So we'll have to wait and see what is going to be coming up next. Due to the fact that we have the release of the Nami and the Yamato and Otama, I wouldn't be shocked if we get more summertime units coming up for the treasure map, potentially for the Kizuna Clash as well. And then in terms of the upcoming Super Evolution, there's a lot of different characters that they could potentially select. One thing to note as well is that we're very close to One Piece Day. One Piece Day is officially, I think, supposed to be the end of July / early August. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm pretty sure this year all of the One Piece Day stuff is going to be in early August. So we probably won't see in the next tier list what the One Piece Day stuff is going to be. So it'll probably be the month after that, right? So do keep that in mind. So with all that being said, that is going to wrap it up for me. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about all this down below in the comment section. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.